Hello, my name is Tonya Reid, and I have been asked to share a short devotion with you as we prepare ourselves for Easter Sunday. As I was thinking and praying about what I might share, I was reminded of a story from when my girls were younger. We were all at church one Easter Sunday when the pastor called all of the children up to the front of the sanctuary to share a children's moment before his sermon. As the children sat down at the altar, the pastor handed each child an empty plastic Easter egg. He asked that the children not open the eggs until instructed. The pastor then proceeded to talk to the children about the events leading up to the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. After he explained that once Jesus died on the cross, his body was taken down and placed in a tomb, and a big rock was rolled into place to cover the opening of the tomb. He told the children that 3 days later some women came to visit and saw that the big rock had been rolled away. Then he said, "Now let's pretend that your egg is the tomb. Let's open the eggs and tell me what's inside." And one little boy excitedly exclaimed, "An invisible chicken!" Well, that was not exactly the answer that the preacher was looking for. It took him a moment to regain his composure. But then he explained that nothing was in the egg, just like nothing was in the tomb, because Jesus had arisen and he was alive. Like most of you, I knew from the time I was a young child that Jesus was crucified, died on the cross, and rose from the dead on the third day. It was a historical fact, plain and simple. Columbus discovered America in 1492, George Washington was the first president of the United States, and Jesus Christ rose from the dead. Case closed. But consider for a minute what it must have been like for the first disciples. Even though Jesus prophesied that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised, many of his followers were filled with grief and hopelessness when faced with the empty tomb. For them it was a sign of disappointment. Contemplating his lifeless body in an empty tomb brought about feelings of anguish and sorrow. The Savior of the world was dead, and all hope was gone. According to the Bible in the book of John, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb on the first day of the week while it was still dark and saw that the stone had been rolled away. She ran and got Peter and John and reported that they have taken the Lord out of the tomb and we do not know where they have laid him. After confirming that the Lord's body was indeed missing, the disciples went back to their homes. While, according to John 20:11-13, Mary stood weeping outside of the tomb. And as she wept, she stopped to look into the tomb and saw 2 angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had lain, one at the head and one at the feet. They said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said, "Because they have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." Now, before I ruin the suspense and tell you that Jesus is about to appear to the grieving woman, let's examine some facts. Mary was at the tomb because she desired to anoint the body of Jesus, who, in her mind, was dead. Upon finding the tomb empty, she began to weep because she assumed that someone had taken the body. She felt extremely sad and hopeless. Just like Mary Magdalene, we often get into trouble by looking at a negative situation and assuming the worst. If we're not careful, our emotions can overtake us and lead to hopelessness. Just because we feel that we are doomed or that a situation is hopeless doesn't make it true. Simply put, feelings are not facts. Understanding this concept is an important step to living in peace. Many times we walk around filled with sadness and on the verge of despair, all because we treat our feelings as the gospel truth. They are not. The tomb was empty because Jesus had risen from the dead, just as he promised. The 2 disciples on the road to Emmaus and apostles hiding for fear provide additional examples of individuals who were sad and afraid because they couldn't believe that Jesus actually rose from the dead. They couldn't get past the horror of the crucifixion and the empty tomb. Very much like you and me, these followers of Christ ignored the one piece of evidence that should never be ignored. No matter how many impossible problems and obstacles are staring us in the face, don't believe your feelings when they try to tell you there is no hope. Jesus Christ is risen from the dead, and all the feelings of fear, sadness, and hopelessness experienced by Mary Magdalene, the disciples, and you and me don't change a thing. Think about the empty tomb. It is empty, and the body of Jesus is missing, but that is because the greatest event imaginable has taken place. Jesus Christ has conquered death, and he has risen from the dead. If he can do that, anything is possible. There are many places that have been empty this past year. Stadiums, restaurants, schools, churches. In addition to these, who would have predicted a time when a grocery store would be open but the emptiest shelves would be the ones that normally contain toilet paper and hand sanitizer? Empty places and empty shelves tell a story, and that story has not been a good one. They tell the story of COVID-19 and how the virus has caused fear and forced drastic measures to try to slow its spread. Most of the time, empty places mean something is wrong. However, in the case of Easter, an empty place means everything is right. The tomb is empty because Jesus is alive. He rose from the dead and he lives today. And because he lives, we do not need to live in fear. Happy Easter, everyone.